It didn't feel like manipulation. It felt like finally being chosen, like someone had studied you, your humor, your wounds, your specific way of seeing the world, and decided you were worth the full force of their attention. That feeling of being seen is not an accident. It is a technique, and understanding how it works is the first step to making sure it never works on you the same way again. Love bombing is the systematic use of excessive affection, attention, flattery, and manufactured intensity to create rapid, deep emotional attachment in a target. The key word is systematic. It is not enthusiasm. It is not just being romantic or expressive. The distinguishing feature of love bombing is that it is disproportionate to the actual length and depth of the relationship, and it has a function that has nothing to do with genuine connection. The mechanism works through overwhelming. The attention is constant. The messages arrive all day. The compliments are extreme. Not "I like spending time with you," but "I've never felt this way about anyone." The plans are immediate. First week, already talking about the future. The intensity is designed to fill your entire field of attention, leaving no room for the normal pacing that would allow your judgment to keep up with your attachment. Overwhelm is the strategy. Here is what is happening in your brain during love bombing. Dopamine floods the reward circuit in response to the unpredictable positive attention. Oxytocin rises with every positive physical contact and shared disclosure. Serotonin is temporarily destabilized. Early romantic obsession shares neurochemical features with OCD. The result is a neurochemical state that mimics early attachment but is more intense and more rapidly induced. Your brain is not malfunctioning. It is responding to stimuli that are specifically calibrated to produce this response. The love bombing phase exists to create a baseline, an emotional reference point. This is what this person and this relationship can feel like. That baseline becomes the standard against which everything that follows is measured. When the intensity begins to drop, and it always drops, you experience the withdrawal as a loss. You work to recreate the baseline that was manufactured specifically to be used against you. A key tactic within love bombing is identity mirroring. They ask questions about your values, your interests, your past. They present themselves as sharing everything. Your favorite author becomes their favorite author. Your hurt from a previous relationship becomes something they completely understand because they experienced it exactly the same way. The mirroring produces an experience of being deeply known quickly. What it actually produces is a reflection of yourself, not a person. Future faking is the rapid construction of a shared, imagined future. By week 3, they're talking about where you'll travel together next year. By month 1, conversations about moving in together. The future, described in vivid, specific detail, creates an emotional investment in a relationship that doesn't yet have the foundation to sustain what's being built on it. You start to organize your internal world around a future that exists only in their narration. And then, the narration changes. Love bombing accelerates the thinning of your other attachments, not through explicit demands, but through time consumption and comparison. They want to spend every available moment with you. Your friends seem less interesting by comparison. Your family feels less attuned. The love bomb becomes your primary source of emotional supply, and the other relationships atrophy through neglect rather than prohibition. By the time explicit control appears, the social infrastructure to support you through it has already been weakened. Disproportionate giving creates a felt sense of debt. Grand gestures, expensive gifts, sacrifices made visible and referenced all produce an internal ledger that tilts toward owing something. This debt mechanism is partly cultural, partly neurological. Reciprocity is one of the most deeply wired social drives in human psychology. Love bombing exploits it. The excessive giving is not generosity. It is the creation of a debt that will be called in later, usually in the form of tolerance for behavior you would not otherwise accept. No one has ever made me feel this way about someone. You're different from everyone I've ever met. I've been waiting my whole life for someone like you. These statements are calibrated to produce a specific feeling that you are uniquely, exceptionally worthy of the love being offered. The special feeling makes the love bombing feel unlike manipulation. Because manipulation is something that happens to ordinary people, and you have just been informed that you are not ordinary. This is the most important thing they make you believe. The pace of attachment is one of the clearest diagnostic signals available. Healthy attachment develops at the speed of trust, which requires time, repeated experience, and honest disclosure. Love bombing is calibrated to compress this timeline. The rush itself is information. When intensity escalates faster than actual knowledge of the person, faster than you have seen them under stress, seen how they handle conflict, seen who they are when things are difficult, the intensity is running ahead of the data. Speed is not chemistry. Speed is pressure. Embedded within the love bombing conversation is a systematic collection of intelligence. They ask about your past relationships. What went wrong? What hurt you most? They ask about your family, your wounds, your dynamics. They ask about your dreams, what you've always wanted that you haven't had. This is presented as intimacy. It functions as reconnaissance. Every disclosed vulnerability is cataloged and will be available later, as leverage, as targeted attack, or as material for the mirror that makes you feel so understood. Love bombing is most effective against people in transition. After a breakup, after a bereavement, after a move or a career change, after a period of sustained loneliness, transition periods temporarily lower the threshold for rapid attachment. Because the ordinary social scaffolding is disrupted, the need for connection is elevated, and the contrast with the preceding difficulty makes intensity feel like rescue. Manipulators who love bomb often scan for people in these windows. Vulnerability is not a character flaw, it is a temporal condition, and it is targetable. The love bombing phase is the setup for the devaluation phase. The intensity is not sustainable, and it was never meant to be. It was meant to create a reference point so vivid and positive that its absence would feel catastrophic. The higher the peak, the more painful the drop. By the time devaluation begins, by the time the attention thins, the criticism appears, the warmth becomes conditional. You have already been trained to associate this person with the most intensely positive emotional experience you've had. That association makes the devaluation almost impossible to leave. The first small withdrawal comes before you know it's a pattern. A day with less contact than usual. A comment that's slightly critical where there were only compliments before. A plan canceled. Each of these could be explained. They're having a hard week. They're stressed. It's nothing. And you explain it. Because the alternative is that something is changing and the loss of what you had feels intolerable. The first withdrawal is a test. What it tests is how much the baseline has taken hold. Every withdrawal comes with an explanation. I've been dealing with things I haven't told you about. My ex has been contacting me. Work has been intense. The explanation is almost always something that positions them as burdened and you as potentially unreasonable for noticing the change. The explanation serves a dual purpose. It provides a narrative for the withdrawal, and it triggers your empathy, which redirects your concern from your experience of the withdrawal to their experience of whatever they're burdened by. The explanation is part of the mechanism. As the intensity drops, you start trying to recreate it. You do more, you give more, you communicate more. You try to reactivate the person who was so intensely present in the beginning. This chasing is what the transition from love bombing to intermittent reinforcement is designed to produce. You are now doing the work of sustaining the emotional intensity, which means the dynamic has reversed. You are no longer receiving, you are generating in the hope of receiving in return. The asymmetry is now complete. The transition from love bombing to intermittent reinforcement is the switch from flooding the reward circuit to managing it. Instead of constant dopamine, you now receive unpredictable spikes. Enough to sustain the attachment, not enough to satisfy it. This is the slot machine transition. Intermittent reinforcement produces stronger, more persistent behavior than constant reinforcement. The love bombing created the attachment. The intermittent reinforcement makes it resistant to extinction. Both phases are part of the same mechanism. Cognitive dissonance is the psychological discomfort that arises when your beliefs conflict with your experience. This person who loved, bombed me, and made me feel uniquely chosen is now treating me badly, produces dissonance. The most common resolution is not to update your assessment of the person. It is to find an explanation for the bad treatment that preserves the original assessment. They're going through something. They're scared of how strong this is. When they're like they were in the beginning, it's worth the hard parts. The love bombing makes the dissonance work for them. Trauma bonding requires alternating experiences of reward and threat from the same source. Love bombing is the most efficient way to create the reward component because it creates reward of extraordinary intensity in a very short time. The trauma bond is then built on top of that intensity. You are not bonded to the person who hurts you. You are bonded to the person who love bombed you and then became someone who hurts you. The original intense version is what your nervous system is trying to get back to, which is why you stay. Red flag 1. Too much, too fast, too soon. If the intensity of the attention, affection, or communication feels disproportionate to the actual length of the relationship, if it feels like more than you've earned, more than you've established trust for, that disproportion is information. Genuine connection tends to build. Love bombing arrives fully formed. When someone offers maximum intimacy before you have had minimum time, the appropriate response is curiosity about why the natural pacing of attachment is being bypassed. Red flag 2. Pressure to commit before you know them. If a very new connection is generating pressure, explicit or implicit, to commit at a speed that doesn't match your level of knowledge of the person, that pressure is a red flag. Healthy connection is comfortable with your reasonable pace. Love bombing has an agenda that is incompatible with slowness because slowness allows your judgment to catch up with your attachment. Pressure to skip the pacing is pressure to prevent the assessment. Red flag 3. Discomfort with your other relationships. If the new person is uncomfortable when you spend time with friends, seems to generate situations that require your choice between them and others, or subtly or explicitly characterizes your other relationships as inferior to what you have with them, this is the isolation tactic embedded within the love bombing. It will be framed as closeness. It functions as narrowing. Healthy connection wants you to have a full life. Love bombing wants to be the only source. Red flag 4. Your needs are never the focus for long. Love bombing creates the experience of being completely seen and attended to. In the early phase, conversations about you are extensive. But if you notice that the focus regularly and quickly shifts back to them, that your disclosures become launching points for their stories, that your needs are acknowledged briefly and then redirected, you are seeing the difference between genuine interest and reconnaissance. Genuine interest stays with you. Intelligence gathering moves on. Red flag 5. The intensity doesn't match what you actually know about them. After the first month, step back from the feeling and assess the knowledge. Do you know how they handle conflict? Have you seen them under stress? Do you know what their previous relationships actually looked like? Have you met anyone who knew them before you? Intensity of feeling is not the same as depth of knowledge. If the feeling is at a 10, but the knowledge is at a 2, that gap is the love bombing doing its work. The most reliable diagnostic tool for love bombing is to slow down deliberately and watch the response. Not to withdraw, not to test, just to pace yourself at a rate that feels genuinely comfortable to you, rather than the rate they've been setting. Someone who is genuinely interested in you will be comfortable with your pace. Someone who has an agenda that depends on rapid attachment will not. The response to your natural pace tells you more than the love bombing itself. When you slow down, watch carefully. Does the intensity of their interest remain consistent? Or does the attention begin to thin? Do they express concern about whether you're still engaged? Do they escalate, bigger gestures, more intense declarations, to pull you back to the previous pace? Or do they express irritation, withdrawal, or passive punishment? The response to your natural pace is data about whether the connection can survive you being yourself at your own speed. Most love bombing cannot. Flattery and discomfort can coexist. You can feel flattered, seen, and chosen, and also vaguely uncomfortable. The discomfort might register as, "This is moving too fast," or "I don't know why, but something doesn't quite fit," or when I mention slowing down, their reaction doesn't match what someone who cares about me would look like. Trust the discomfort. It is not ingratitude. It is not being damaged or unable to receive love. It is your nervous system performing the function it was designed for. Time is the most reliable protection against love bombing. Not wariness, not cynicism, not holding back, just time. The 90-day rule is a practical guideline. In the first 90 days, observe more than you commit. Allow the relationship to develop at a pace where your knowledge of the person keeps up with your attachment to them. Love bombing cannot sustain its intensity for 90 days because the effort required is unsustainable and the agenda requires either commitment or devaluation. Time is how you find out which one you're dealing with. Recovery from love bombing is recovery from a neurochemical event as much as a relational one. The grief is real, not for the person who love bombed you, but for the version of the relationship you experienced in the peak phase. That version was constructed for you, but your nervous system experienced it as real, and the withdrawal from it follows a withdrawal pattern. Recovery involves allowing the grief, understanding the mechanism, rebuilding your attachment calibration, and learning to distinguish the feeling of being chosen from the evidence of being truly known. Healthy early attachment does not feel like being overwhelmed. It feels like gradually increasing interest, matched investment, and a pace you set together rather than one that is set for you. It includes comfortable silences, honest moments of not knowing each other yet, and an absence of pressure. The connection builds through shared experience over time. There is no manufactured debt. There is no vulnerability scan disguised as intimacy. There is no future faking. There is just two people getting to know each other without agenda. If this episode helped you understand something that happened to you, or something you saw coming that you weren't sure how to name, share it. Love bombing is still dramatically underrecognized, partly because it starts by making people feel extraordinarily good. Subscribe for weekly psychological self-defense content. And remember, Being targeted by a love bomber is not evidence that you are naive. It is evidence that you have the capacity for the kind of genuine connection they were pretending to offer. Sodugo vo.py Septurin scripts deception circuit ep10 vo scripts txt channel dc watch